Hello world, welcome to the Codango YouTube channel, and I want to start off by saying thank you very much for getting me to 100 subscribers. I mean, that means a lot to me. That's something I never thought I would get to this year. That's a number that seems small to some people, but to me it's quite huge, and I really appreciate everyone that subscribed to this YouTube channel, and I look forward to creating more quality videos for you guys out there. And also I'll be looking forward to you guys also posting comments on the comment section on the type of comments you want to see, so I can tailor my videos to what you guys like as we go on this YouTube channel. So heading straight to today's video, as you can see on the screen, this is a list of all my YouTube videos, and this is gotten from the YouTube API. I think it's in version 3 now, and we're gonna be doing it by setting up a proxy server in the backend using Node, and it's going to be like some sort of endpoint which will be consumed on the front end. As you can see from these videos, if I click on one of the videos, it's going to launch a new tab on the browser directly to that particular video. So that's what we're gonna be doing today. And if you take a look at this notepad on the server side, what we'll do is create a server. We'll start by creating a server side boiler templates. Then we install all the needed dependencies, create the Express server, and also we set up the .env file as well as the route to get the proxy API requests, and then handle all the possible errors that can come from that. And then on the client side, we're going to be creating a boilerplate using Bootstrap, and then we're going to consume the API requests as well as display the API request on the page as we saw earlier. So at the end of all this, we are going to do some hosting. The API endpoint will be hosted on Heroku, while the front end will be hosted on Netlify. So I guess if you stick around, you should be able to learn one or two things from this. So we start without wasting further time, let's get started. So heading straight to Visual Studio Code, you can see I have two folders here: the server folder for the backend, and then the client folder for the front end. So starting with the server folder, we're going to create some files. Before we create any files, let's initialize npm. To do that, we need to navigate into the server folder and then type npm init -y. The y flag allows us not to enter, gives us a form of boiler template without entering any form of asking any form of question. So when I press enter, it's going to auto generate it in our server folder. So this package.json file generated through the npm allows us to install packages we will need in the creation of this project, and I think we'll need 4 different npm packages. The first one is we are gonna need Express, we're gonna need Course, we are gonna need Morgan, and Node Fetch. So let me do npm install Express, Course to prevent course error. Morgan helps us to log, serves as an helper that helps us to log the request we make into the it logs it into the command line. And then Node Fetch, this is the package we use to fetch the YouTube version 3 API. So let's install these 4 packages. So while that is installing, let me set up the package.json file. So heading straight there, as you can see in the script object, we have something called test. So I'm going to change that test to start. This is where we're going to be starting our application. So I'm going to remove this, and then I'm going to change it to node server.js. The server.js file which I'm here to create is going to be the entry point of our application, and then we're going to also have a dev key here. So this allows us to use modmon to serve our application. So let me do nodemon server.js. I think I'll need to install that too, because nodemon allows us to refresh the anytime we save anything in the server folder or the server file, it's kind of automatically refreshes it instead of us doing the refresh on our own end manually. So let me create the server.js file. So let's have server.js, and let me check if our package has finished installing. Okay, yes, it has. So let me also install nodemon. So I can just do npm install nodemon. Nodemon makes our work easier instead of always having to stop the server and then restarting it every time we make a change. So it just does it on the fly anytime we save. So while installing nodemon in our server.js, let's import or let's call all the packages we installed, which the first one is going to be Express. Const Express equals require Express. Then we're also going to require cost, so as to prevent cost error in the front end. So require cost. Next up is to also call Morgan. So const Morgan equals require Morgan, and finally that will be fetch. So there are other packages out there you could use to call this particular YouTube API, but the reason why we are using fetch is because it requires a JSON. It returns a JSON, and this makes whatever we are doing easier. Because it returns JSON. I think the other ones out there, you can check it out in on the Google search. None comes to my head right now, but I tried some other ones, but I discovered Notefetch is the best one for me. So another thing we need to set up is a env file, because we'll be using this file to hide our API key, which will be generated using the Google console. So let me create a new file and the base of our application. So that will be .env. So I'm going to leave it like this for now. So back in the server.js, we can have something like require .env .config. So I think this is what allows us to have access to the .env file. Next up is to initialize the Express server. So to do that, we can just do const app equals to Express. Let's call the Express objects, and then now we need to create a port to which to serve the application. So to do that, we will need to create a variable called ports, and it's going to run on port 5000. So I can just do const ports equals process dot env dot port. The port will be in capital letter, or 5000, and then we're gonna call app.listen, which is the variable we use to initialize or to call our Express server. So we can just do app.listen port, and then using ES6 syntax, we can just create an arrow function and open a curly brace bracket to enter let's log the result of our initialized or in the result of our ports in the console to know if it works or not. So to do that, I'll just do console.log listening on ports Okay, let's make this backtick so it will be easier for us. So I'm gonna change this from a normal quotes to backtick. So we can just do listen on ports, comma. So the name of our variable, which is ports. So that will be ports 5000. So listening on ports 5000. So before I start this server, there's one more package need to install, which I forgot to install, which is .env. So I'm going to do npm install .env. So this allows us to call the variable which is in our .env file. So without that package, we will not be able to access that. So I need to install that. So from what we have here, we've already installed course, Express, Morgan. So I think the next nodemon, has nodemon been installed? I can't see nodemon here. Why is it not installed? So I'm going to check that out now. So npm install nodemon dash s and also .env. For some reason, I don't know why this is acting weird. So maybe adding a dash s flag would save it to the package.json. So let's see the result of that as it loads. Let me save. Okay, yeah, perfect. Now we have .env and we also have nodemon in our package.json. So that means we are good to go. So what we can now do is to run the application by running. So you can just run npm start and let's see the results. Yes, it's listening on port 5000, which is excellent. So we now have a server which is being served in the application. Let me just check this notepad and see what we've done. We've created the server side, the boiler template for the server side, so we can just tick that off. We've installed the needed dependencies. So we've also created the Express server. That's check. And then we've also, okay, we haven't set up we've created the env file, but we haven't put the, what's it called, the API key there. So I think until we do that, I wouldn't want us to check this off. So next thing is we'll look for the API key we're gonna use. Then we now create the route and then undo the errors. So those are the next three things we're gonna do now. So the next thing we need to do is to get the API key. So to do that, we're going to head over to the Google console. So I can just type Google console. So I head over to my dashboard on the Google console. As I do this, I'm going to generate an API key. So that particular API key, I'm going to delete at the end of this project. So don't bother trying to use my own API key. Just follow this tutorial using your own personal account or any account relating to you. So you don't, because mine won't be applicable to yours. So if you try to copy the API key, then it won't work. So once this loads, we're going to create a new project. I already have some few projects on this particular account. So a new one would need to be created. So to do that, I'm going to click this new project here. And then it's going to ask us for a project name. I'm just going to call it Angle. And then click create. So it shouldn't take time to create. And when it's finished creating, we'll still need to navigate to that particular project. So I think we can do that now. So we called it Angle, right? It's still initializing. I think it's done now. So let's click on Angle and it's going to open. So the next thing we'll do here is to look for the enable API section. So on this sidebar, I believe it should be there. So we have APIs and services. So let's head over to the dashboard there. So on the dashboard, the next thing we need to do is to navigate to the YouTube um library where we can enable APIs and services for this particular project. So we need to install the YouTube, or we need to enable rather the YouTube data API, which is in version 3 as we speak. So by the time you're watching this video, it could be version 4, version 5, version 6, or version 7. I don't know. But as at this moment, it's in the latest version is version 3. So I'll search for YouTube, and we can see the YouTube data API version 3 here. So I click on that, and it's going to take us to where we can enable it. So we click on enable. Then once it's enabled, we can create a credential. So by creating the credential, it helps us to generate an API key. So that API key is what we're going to use in the .env file in our Visual Studio Code. So let's look at this particular button here. So I'll click on create credentials, and then we need to select YouTube data API version 3, and then I'm going to click public data, which will help us create the API key. And so we have an API key, presto. So I copy that, then I click on done. And there you go. Our API key is ready. 14th of May 2001, creation date, restrictions none, and then the key. So let's head over back to our Visual Studio Code, and in the .env file, what am I doing? In the .env file, we can now create a key and then insert our API key there. So it's gonna be in capital letters. So we're gonna have Google underscore API underscore key. So we paste it there directly without any space. So it's gonna be together. So, and we have also installed this package called .env, which allows us to access the API from the .env file. So that is, I think that's all for creating of the API key. So the next thing we need to do is to create the routes of our application, and also the undo the errors. So to do that, we are going to let's initialize Morgan and course. So I'm going to say app dot use, which is Morgan. I'm gonna just call this angle. Then same thing for course. Course is something that can frustrate the hell out of you, but by creating a proxy server, I mean, you can do all this using the front end directly in the JavaScript, but you might be running into some course error. But by creating a proxy server, you kind of avoid those course errors, and you have the ability to um, manipulate things better when you create a proxy server, which is what we are doing here. So let me just put a comment here called routes. So under the routes, we can just do, it's going to be a get request. So app.guest, then the endpoints we are going to be using is going to be called all videos. So all videos, then this is going to be written using the latest CS6 syntax. So I'm going to be making use of async await and also the try catch method. So to do that, so let's call async. So we're gonna have two arguments here, or two parameters, which is called request and response in this particular order. If you mix it up, if you put response before request, you're gonna get some errors. So it's gonna be request response, then we open a curly brace bracket. Then let's create a variable, because when we want to create this, there is a particular URL we need to um coming straight from the documentation on about the YouTube API version 3. So I'll show you now. So let me just create a variable const URL is equals to, so heading straight to my notepad. I think I pasted it there. So we are going to have something like this. So let me copy that and then head straight. Yeah. So let me open a quotes and then it's going to be inside the code. So we have googleapis.com/YouTube version 3, which contains all the playlist items and then parts, the snippets, and playlist ID. So we are going to install or we are going to paste the playlist ID of my particular YouTube channel. So my playlist ID or YouTube ID is here. So I'm going to copy that and then I'm going to paste it here. So I'm going to change this C to U. So all this is in the documentation. I'll post the link in the description for you to see. So and then lastly, we have a max result of 10. I'm just going to include it to, like, I think I have about 12 videos now on YouTube. This will be my 13th video. So I'm just going to put it on 15. So that means all my video is going to get displayed on the browser when we finish creating this particular API. So once that is done, we can now um, continue with the um, calling of this particular adding this URL to our API key to get the result of all the videos on that particular YouTube channel, which is my YouTube channel. So I can just do a sync, create an arrow function, and open a curly brace bracket. So I'm going to use a try catch block. So I wait, fetch, and then I'm going to use a backtick, so I can just open a $sign and then pass in the URL and then so pass in the API key. So I'm going to have and key is equals to $sign. So we're going to have process dot env dot, let me just copy this so I won't make any mistakes. So Google API key. So that's it. So it's going to return a promise. So we are going to make use of .then and then .catch to catch the errors and then also load to get the JSON object and also to catch any form of error. So we can just say .then. Oh, sorry. .then. Going to return a response. So we're going to put it in, it's coming in form of JSON. So response.json. And then we subscribe to the response again using .then, and then this time around we pass in the JSON and then we make use of an arrow function which returns a res.json. Then it's gonna return the items. I can just console log the JSON first and then let's catch the error. So I can just say catch, catch, catch. It's gonna be error. And then we log the error to the console too. So we can just say error dot response dot body. So let me save all the files and then let's try to get this particular endpoint in our browser. So I can just, since it's running on, let me check our server is still running on port 5000. So let me just open a new tab and I'm going to say localhost 5000 / all videos. Let's see if we get any form of result. cannot get all videos endpoints. Okay. Um, let's see. Probably we made a mistake somewhere. Well, let me restart the server just in case. npm starts. Listening on port 5000. So let me refresh that. Okay, we are getting some errors here. I think the reason for this error may be because we didn't have a semicolon at the end of this URL. I think it's kind of mixing things up. So let me just close the gap between the async function and then the URL variable, and then add this particular semicolon. So let's save this and then refresh the server, because server has been ringed. Now let me type npm start once again. Okay, listening on port 5000, and then okay, boom, we now have a list of all the data relating to our YouTube. So let me refresh this and then check the network. So from the network we can see that we have the results. So we have the key called id kind. We have the snippets, which contains the channel id, the channel title, description, playlist id, and the like. So this is my latest video. 100 subscriber celebration and appreciation. So this is what we are able to get from creating a proxy server. So um last thing we need to do here is to create some sort of error handling. But before I do that, let me okay, once I create some the error handlings, we'll try to like mess with the URL and see if it works. So let's try to create a not found middleware in case maybe we enter the URL that is not found. So let me just type not found. So we can have function, create a function called route not found, and then it's gonna take in, because it's a middleware, it's gonna take in 3 arguments. First one is going to be the request, the second one is going to be the response, and the last one is gonna be the next. Then we open a curly brace, and then inside this curly brace we're gonna have a rest.status of 404. If you're wondering how I'm getting this, you can check the documentation of the how to handle middleware errors um in Express. So that should give you an idea of how this can be done. So we can just create a variable called error. So new error is gonna take in not found. So next, taking the arguments of error. So that's for the not found middleware. So the next one is the error handler middleware. So in case we get an error, so the error handler is quite similar to, it's gonna take in 4 arguments this time around. So I can just have error handler middleware. So we're gonna create a normal function, function called error handler, taking in 4 arguments rather. It's gonna take in error, it's gonna take in requests, it's gonna take in response, and lastly it's gonna take in next. Anytime you see next in a function in Node, just know that that is a middleware by default. So we're gonna say if res dot header sent, Then we're gonna return. What are we returning? We are returning a response. So response.status called taking an argument of response.status code or 500. And then finally, we are going to call the response.json, which is gonna take in a key object called message and also an error dot message. So that will be all. So where are we gonna call these functions? So we're gonna call these functions using app.use towards the end of our application. So I can just say app.use routes. I don't want to type this out again. Let me just copy this. Routes not found. And then error handler. So that's it. So let's test this out. I don't know why my node mod is not working properly. So let's test this out by messing with the URL. So I can just add an extra S here. Let me save. Why saving? Let me restart the server. I don't trust that node mod is running properly, and I don't want to waste much time setting it up again. So heading over to the browser, let me just refresh this. So we got this message not found. When we check our code, we can see that we are getting that from here, from the routes. It's gonna call this error by default, and the same thing applies to this. So anytime we get an error, we're gonna get the error dot message. So it shows things are working beautifully here, and I think that's the last thing we need to do in the node before we start consuming the API on the front end. So let me just tick this off. So we've created an env file. We've created a route to get the proxy API requests, and lastly, we've handled all necessary errors. So on the client side, all we have to do is just to create a boilerplate template, consume the API, and then display the API request on the page. So on the front end, which is the client side, we are going to be making use of Bootstrap. So let me cancel this and then create 3 files in the front end. The first one is going to be the index.html, the style.css, and then app.js. We might as well have tried to use React or any form of front-end libraries and framework, React, Angular, and Vue, but this is a very small project, so there's no need to overbloat things by making use of those. So that's why we're making use of vanilla JavaScript. So I need to get the Bootstrap CDN, so I can just type, which is going to Bootstrap 5 recently got perfected. That is, we don't need to. It's no longer in a development or beta mode. It's now fully complete, so we can make use of Bootstrap 5 now. It's in production now. It's gonna be on the somewhere on the edge tag. So now we have access to the Bootstrap classes to create this. So what I can do now is we're gonna have some few HTML tags here, including an ID which we will use to loop through and display all the videos we have on the backend. So before I go further, let me just link the CSS and then the JavaScript file. So link rel style sheets href son of the style.css, and then we have a script tag which is going to be Okay, let's see. So we're gonna have src, which is equals to app.js. So JavaScript and our style sheet is linked. So what we can have there is an h3 tag which contains a class of text center to center the text, and we're gonna have a title called the code angle YouTube videos. And then what we're gonna have next is a container, a div which has a container class. So class container. So inside this div we're going to have another div with a margin bottom class of 5. So we're gonna have class margin bottom of 5, and then it's also gonna have an ID. This is where we are going to show all our videos. So I'm just going to call it vid. I think that will be all. So let me just save this and then open the results through live server. So the code angle, let me give it a margin top of this particular header. Margin top 3. Okay, cool. So in the CSS, I think what we can just do is to give a global. Okay, since we're gonna be making use of a card to load okay, in fact, let's just wait. Let's leave the style of CSS. We might not make use of it in the end, so let's just leave it empty for now. Depending on how the result of what we loop through looks like, then we'll determine if we need to add some margin or some padding and the like. So quickly heading straight to the app.js, the first thing we need to do is to create a variable which contains the API. For now, it's in local host, so I can just get it from the browser here. Yeah, we can get it from localhost 5000 forward slash all videos. So I can just create a variable. So const API video underscore URL, which is equals to, yeah, so these are API. It's currently local to our machine. We're gonna host this on Heroku later, so as well as the front end on Netlify. So for now, let's just have this, and then what we can do is now to make use of the fetch API. You can just do fetch, or you can just do fetch and then pass in the API video URL, which we have here. And then it's going to return a promise which we are going to subscribe to. So we are getting JSON in return, JSON data in return. So we can just do response.json, then we subscribe to the video results that comes by adding a videos argument and then an arrow function. So let's now create a variable. So what we can do now is just say let video data, let's call it video data, that is the data from all the videos that are being created. Then let's pass in the video results we are getting here in particular. So and then we can just console log that. So let's console log the variables, the videos rather, and see if it's if we are getting it in our front end. So let me save this and then check the console. Okay, let's just console log video data since we already passed the videos as a variable. So heading back here, let me open the console. Yes, we have an array of 10. Remember, in our backend, we limit the amount of results in our server.js file to a max result of 10. That's why we're having 10 results in our front end. So with this, with what we have here on the front end, like we've already done half of our job, is just to load this into a UI, that is a user interface, and then display it in the browser. That's what's left. So um a lot of progress has been made. So let me just check this. um so we've created a boiler template, and then we've consumed the API request because we can load it on the console. The last thing we need to do now is to display this API request on the page. So still heading to Bootstrap, we need to make use of the Bootstrap cards. So let me just type in cards and let's search to look for a convenient card we can display on the page. There was a particular card I saw I would like to make use of, so which I think I've showed you earlier in the video. So we can find it somewhere here. So I'm just going to keep scrolling. Yeah, this is it. So it has an image, it has a card title. So before I copy the code for that, I need to loop through the data and then paste in the code there. So let me cancel this. So in the app.js, what we can do now is say if there are a lot of ways you can do this, but I'm just gonna do it this way. You can do it in so many other ways. So I'm just gonna say if video data, that is the result of all our videos, dot length is greater than 0, then we are going to have a list. We are going to create a variable called video array, video array, which takes in all the videos, but for now it's going to be an empty string. So we can now say the video data dot for each. So for each, we could use map, we could use for each, but what for each does is just returns the videos as they are, unlike map, which returns a new set of like it loops through and return a new set of results. But for each, it kind of just returns the data as they are. So for each video, we can, okay, for each video we can have what we call it, okay, I think we're having 3 brackets here, which is wrong. So for each video, we have an arrow function, and we pass in an arrow and then open a curly brace, so we can just call the video array which we passed in here. So the video array, and we kind of concatenate and then use the backtick. So now is where we need to paste in the, what's it called, the bootstrap card that that is in bootstrap. So we can just copy the whole of this and then paste that here. Okay, we seem to be getting some sort of error, and that is because we have 2 plus signs here. It's supposed to be 1. So plus equals 2. So let me see. So plus equals 2, then we have a list of HTML tags here, which we got from Bootstrap. So let me save this and see what happens in the browser. I don't think anything is going to happen because we have not make use of the ID in our HTML. So we've not made use of this ID. So for us to see at least the results of the cards to be displayed on the HTML here, we need to make use of this vid ID. So what we can now do is we can create a new variable. So I'm going to say const videos. Let's just call it videos element equals document dot get element by ID. So and we're gonna pass in the vid. So and now we're now gonna pass into the inner HTML. So dot inner HTML is equals to the video array. Where is the video array? The video array is where the data of all our videos is stored in. So I think this with this we are good to go. So let me save that and then let me check the front end if we have any form of. Yes, as you can see, we have the video cards displayed on the browser, but you notice it's just for now static data from Bootstrap. This static data. So we are gonna work on this now and then passing the data coming from the APIs into these cards. So we're gonna have our images, our title, as well as our description part. So I think with that, um, we will be able to complete our tutorial. So what I can do now is I don't like the way the card is looking. So what we can do is let's just quickly style some things. So I can just give it a margin top. Let me see. It's too close to the top, so margin top of 5. And then the max width is 540px. Let's give it a margin of auto because it's not in the middle, so I can just say margin. It's always difficult to write CSS and HTML in JavaScript because you don't know if you have any form of error or not. So I think this is good to go. Let's save this and see. Okay, yeah, works perfectly well. It's not in the middle. So can now start passing in the data we want to display on the UI. So the first one we're going to work on is the image. So on this image here, we have an src. So let's clear this up. So instead of having dollar dots, we're going to have let's open a bracket, and then for the image, let's check the objects in the console. For us to get the image, we're going to open a snippet. The snippet part is somewhere there. So I think it's in thumbnails. So this is where we have all the images. We have a default, we have one of high, we have one of max res, medium, and standard. So we're gonna make use of the high. I think the quality of that one would be stronger. So what I can do is say video dot snippets. You know, this video is already a variable we have here, so I'm just passing it here. So dot snippets dot thumbnails dot I. Let me open the objects folder. There might be something. Yeah, we have height, URL, and width. So we want the URL. So dot height dot URL. I think we are good to go with that. So let me save and see what happens in the browser. Oh, this is big. This is too big. It takes in the entire size of a card. So we need to work on the height and the width. So to do that, we can just give it a height of let's say 224 height, 224, and then the width is gonna be 176. Like I said, you can create your own UI and then display the results of this data there. But for me, I generally work so much on this front end, so I just want us. I'm more interested in showing us a working version of this. So as you can see, the images are loading properly from all the YouTube videos I've created. So the next thing we need to work on is the card title. Yeah, the card title. So the card title is located here. So I'm thinking instead of having an H5 tag, we can just have an A tag in between the card title, so that anytime we click on the title, it takes us to the particular video we are clicking on. So what I can do here is we can change this H5 to an A tag. So then I think A tags have href. So this is where we work on the result. So I can kind of have an href is equals to https /www.youtube.com /watch TV. Okay, watch TV, and then is equals to, then we make use of the $sign and then passing our results from coming from an API. So I can say video dot. So we need a video ID. So this is what would allow us to. I think I saw a video ID among the results. So let's check video ID. So it's somewhere inside the snippets. Okay, yeah, this is the video ID. So each video ID is unique to a particular video. So I can just say video dot snippet dot resource ID. Resource ID dot video ID, and then between where we have the card title, you can just have what's it called? You can just call in the video dot snippets dot title to get the title of our video dot snippets dot title. My system seems to be slow for some reasons. I don't know why. Targets equals to underscore blank. So let me save that and then head over to the front end or to the browser. Let me click on this particular video. So it takes us to that particular video on YouTube. So amazing moving background image video I created a while back. So each video has a unique ID, so that works perfectly well. So let's head over back to the project. So let's quickly work on the description and on the date too. I would like to add a date, a creation date. So the description is just, it will be snippet.description. Description is here. So that will be in the p tag. So instead of having all these tests, I'm just gonna clear this up. So we're gonna have video dot snippet dot description, because some description are very long, so we might need to make use of some JavaScript method. So I'm going to add a substring dot substring and then it takes into variable where the number is supposed to start and the amount of words we want in there. So we want it to start from the very first word, and then we don't want more than 90 words. So let me save that, because my description is usually long sometimes, so it will be too long if I don't restrict it. So we just have 90 words here. So that works perfectly well. Then lastly, what we can now do is the dates. That is when the video was created, when it was last updated. So date published instead of last updated, we're gonna have, in fact, let me clear everything here. So we can just have date published. So we can have new date, and then we can just do video dot snippet dot published art. I think that's the, when you check the objects in the console inside the snippet, most of the data are inside the snippet. So published arts, which we have here. So let me copy that. The published arts. So the dates, we need to kind of pass a form of, we have different ways we can pass the date. So I'm going to make it to ISO string. So I will just say dot to ISO string method. Then I'm going to split dot split. So using it this way helps us to remove the time. So it just gives us the result of the date. So that's why I'm using the split and then to the ISO string. So we just have the date year, the day, year, and then the month. So as you can see here, date published 2001, 2021, May 29. So instead of having the time and the rest, so we decided to split that out of the date object. So this is a way to do that. So I think that's all for this video. So the next thing we need to do is to host the server side on Heroku and then the front end on Netlify. So I'm not going to do that in this video. So I'll work on that maybe 2-3 days from now. We should get a video on my channel. So be on the lookout for that. So what you can do is to turn on the notification bell and then like and subscribe to this video. So thank you very much for watching. I guess, do I need to just do a quick overview of what we did? On the back end, we created a proxy server to get all the videos from a YouTube channel, and then we went on to get the API key, which is in the Google console, and I showed you how we can do that. And then we also created some middlewares to make us to undo the errors, and then we loaded the result of all the videos into the browser. That is, we created an API that holds all the data which we can use in our front end, and that's exactly what we did. When we go to the front end, we made use of the Bootstrap library, CSS library, and then in the JavaScript parts we made use of this URL. So once this backend is already hosted on Heroku, this URL is going to change, because Heroku is going to give us a new HTTPS API, which we are going to change when we host it. So, and then we looked through all the API video URLs and then displayed it in a card. So that's basically what we did. So if you have any further questions, please put it in the comment section and I will answer you as soon as possible. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.